What is something school taught you which turned out to be false? That American Indians were savages who just gave us land then sporadically fought over it. Textbooks these days won't even include most of the fighting or violence. Thank heavens my mom talked to me about what I was learning and set the record straight. I learned more about true American history from my own mother at home than the school system. To this day these widely known facts are being ignored in schools and most other places. The FK. I'm in my 30s. And I remember learning about all sorts of America's misdeeds. Everything from smallpox blankets to McCarthyism. I figured we'd only be progressing. Have these things been taken out? School textbooks are very rarely standardized across the country. A school district can shop for the textbook that pushes whatever agenda they want. If they want a sanitized American history textbook, it's relatively easy to get a hold of. One of my GCSE units was called The American West. It taught us everything from 1837 to the closing of the frontier in the 1980s. Talking to some of NY American friends, a lot are clueless about how badly the natives were treated by the US and Europeans. Their education on it was incredibly biased, which is sad that they aren't even taught all of their own country's history. I was taught about almost every battle and treaty and what both sides did wrong. I am in no way saying that either side was completely innocent in this. I am British. We're taught that we were evil for most of history. From colonization to genocides and the Opium Wars. Nothing is sugar-coated or hidden from us. Teacher. Someday, you may need to rely on the works of poets to find a job. Me. Who works at an animal shelter. So that was AFG lie. That they're against bullying. All the schools I've been to don't give AST if someone is doing it. And if you fight back are the one at fault. FG degenerates. You, miserable _degenerate. When I was a teacher I had no idea what to do about bullying with kids. Nobody really taught me formally at college or in professional developments. They were so mean to each other. I'd call the bullies' parents. I'd write them up. I'd call administration. I'd call school police. Anything. Nothing ever happened. Except security, police would sometimes drag the more violent of the two. Or more. Out. After a while I just had to try to break up issues as they came up by separating the kids. And often, I didn't even know a kid was being bullied because they were good at hiding it. The victim and the bully. That is. Also because with 34 kids in a classroom, sometimes, it's impossible to see and hear every single thing as a teacher. And sometimes the Paris and one-on-ones just straight up didn't do anything or yelled at everyone involved anyway. It was so sad. A little Chinese boy was bullied for his very Chinese name and I just let him hide by my desk so he could cry in peace. I couldn't even figure out who made fun of him on the first place. There were 32 second graders in my tiny room. Another boy was made fun of for just being different and a little awkward. I let him stay in my classroom through my prep so he could calm down and I gave him some candy. Tried calling parents and nobody picked up or numbers were broken. The school systems that I've been in just aren't equipped to handle it. Nor do some monsters. Admin. Care sometimes. Smaller classroom sizes. More counselors. And, to be harsh, sometimes better parents help. In a classroom of 15 kids I could handle things better as the adult of the room. It sucks and I hate seeing bullying just happen with so many kids. The reason and mechanism for tides is usually about 50% wrong. The way most jet engines produce thrust is typically explained in wrong or incomplete terms. The South didn't rebel from the North. American Civil War. Because of states' rights as some sort of ethereal high-minded philosophy. It was the right to keep and own human beings as slave labor. On that note, as good as you think Robert E. Lee was, he lost the war. So any praise must be tempered with that realization. Some Native Americans actually did have written language. The falsehoods and incomplete context apropos Native American culture in American schools is bothersome. Atoms. Look. Nothing like the model taught in many chemistry classes. Blood is never blue when it is in the body. Carrots aren't really good for your eyes. And, most importantly, most kids aren't special. By definition, most would be average. Instead of teaching that stupidity, we should teach regression to mean and how to move the mean such that the regression to it is to a place higher than when you started. Then, even though you are merely average, the average is quite good. The reason Robert E. Lee was seen in such a positive light is two main reasons. His battle tactics and leadership helped Confederate forces last much longer than they would have with a weaker, less tactical general. Most of his image comes from his soldiers and students when he was at Washington and Lee College. The way he carried himself and acted crest the hero worship just like others looked towards Washington, Lincoln, or FDR. Almost everything except for biology, chemistry, and mathematics, everything else, including history, was either a outright lie or a half-truth. One thing they should teach kids again is stop, drop, and roll. That entire piece was taken out to make room for the DARE program. You know, drugs are really exciting. That my grade in school will decide my future. And according to that I will be useless person in future. FKU all AE teachers. Just because you are popular doesn't mean you'll be successful. FK all. Since graduating college it's been all about networks and who you know, who likes you. I've literally asked people how they got their job and they said they knew someone that pulled them in with no qualifications or experience. It's a tough pill to swallow. To be fair though, popular in high school doesn't necessarily translate well to business-type networking. So there's still some truth there. I think. True story, I have gotten literally every job I have ever had because of who I knew. First job working maintenance at a pool. Grandpa got my brother a job who got me a job. Called me and offered the job. Worked at a barbecue stand for my cousin's boyfriend's brother. He called me and offered the job. Neighbor got me my work-study job in college. Went to work on the family farm after college. I have never made a resume for anything ever. I volunteered at a NFP because I met online and played games with the help desk manager. Trying to remember. Might have been CS. Source. After that I got a contract gig that turned into full-time job through my cousin's friend. And now I'm working at an MSP with someone who is friends with another family member's spouse. And there you have about 9 years of full-time employment experience in IT. That writing involves a bunch of uniform, cut and dry steps for brainstorming, with dozens of mind map worksheets, drafting, revising, editing, etc. And that this is the way real writers did it. Am now a published writer. Yeah. No. Not how it works in the slightest. In the 70s they lied to us about drugs like pot, LSD, and shrooms. They laid a lot of scary ST out there that didn't turn out to be true. 2 things. Keep these papers, they're important, don't lose them. I ended up hoarding papers all the way from first grade to senior year of high school. If you ever get a C or into a fight or cheat you'll never go to college and you'll be blacklisted from applying or attending any of them. I didn't really think of the impact these things had on me, and suffice to say I feel like I'm worse off for it. That second one definitely had an impact on me. The first time I started getting poor grades in sophomore year of high school. I pretty much figured my life was over. And I started acting like it. Everything just spiraled from there. Mistakes are not okay. Well, obviously it is. You'll eventually learn from them. That middle school was supposed to be strict but much better. That blood is actually blue. Sorry, what? They taught you that blood is blue? Yeah. When I was in 3rd grade they told me that blood when it's inside your veins are blue. and that it's the interactions with the air when you bleed that turn it red. It's a very common misconception that blood turns blue after the oxygen is spent, solidified by your veins being blue in appearance. My school taught us this too. It turns blue until it reoxygenates in your lungs. One teacher kept BG to the class about how boys are horrific perverts and deserve to be burned in HL. She got fired after we got a slip around asking for her resignation. Sent it to the principal, and didn't show up to her class for 3 days. One guy had recorded her saying all that st, and there was no dispute after that. Some kid at our school took a video of him getting bullied and he got a 10-day suspension for taking a video. Bully got nothing. I had a pretty cool maths teacher in high school. He was a jokester. He made funny jokes. Sometimes did some silly stuff. He was genuinely a really fun guy and serious when it was time to actually work. Everybody really liked him. It was all fun and games. And work too. Until he suddenly stopped doing all that stuff and became bitter towards us, and people's grades started getting a lot worse. Turns out one of the guys in my class reported him to someone because joked about the girl he liked. Jokes that she wasn't offended by and even found funny. The teacher was fired and is now prohibited to work in a high school ever again. That my government is here for the people. That grades in elementary and middle school actually matter. I had a 45 in my 5th grade history class at one point. And I loved history. I just didn't like having to memorize the preamble to the Constitution and other pointless things my school made us do. I now read and study history on my own and know far more history than the average person. Same. I am glad I spent a lot of my early years stressing about st that doesn't fekn matter. I know the preamble thanks to Schoolhouse Rock. Old cartoon that used to come on between shows on Saturday morning. They matter for going to high school, and you're only as good as the last school you went to, I think anyways. Electron shells. The first shell contains 2 electrons. If I'm right. Those are technically probability levels. Not hard and fast shells. Of course. I couldn't figure that st out when I was in school. So there's every chance that I have it wrong now. That Napoleon is small and that Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake." It's possible that she did. But nothing indicates that she had political leanings that way. "Let them eat cake" is a literal translation of a political slogan. It was a protest against unfair taxes from long before she was born. The closest phrase that most Americans would be familiar with is, "No taxation without representation." That we had a permanent record. Pretty sure I've read somewhere that it is a thing, but it only has warnings about behavioral issues a student has. And that after high school it gets deleted. Take this with a salt shaker full of salt. I don't actually know what I'm talking about. Teacher here. This is correct. If you move, it gets mailed to your new school as securely as possible. I have handled some massive permanent records. That said, the size of the record says more about the parents than the child. The permanent record is either used between or with A. Moving from one school to the next. B. Tells if a child had any behavior problems. C. Problem parents. D. Possible grades. It's deleted after high school unless you are a constant problem, and by that I mean lots of fights and lots of suspensions in quick succession. Otherwise into the trash it goes. All men are created equal. You'll use this in the future. You need to have an university education to get a job. Man, was this preached at my school. There was a lot of accepted bullying for students who went into community college, trade school, or a manufacturing job. We had a vocational technology school partnered with our high school, and some kids attended classes there to learn trades. The general opinion was that VOTech kids were imbeciles destined for a life of menial labor, while the gifted kids took advanced placement biochemistry classes and were on track to be masters of the universe. If I had a time machine, I'd tell my nerd teenage self to skip the AP English and go to Votech and learn how to weld. You can read books on the oil rig. And having 6 figures on your W-2 sure beats having 6 figures of debt. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.